Hi, welcome to another episode of I Mustache You Something. I cannot contain my excitement to have Dr. Omar Shaker, the
شكرا.
the man who's going to change the face of medicine over the next 20 years, and people just don't know it yet. I am happy to have been connected with Omar through our mutual friend Paul Kist, um, who you all know if you are part of the loyal following of the I Mustache You Something series. And we connected actually over uh, the COVID thing. So we've mentioned certain silver linings in this COVID cloud that descended upon us. And my relationship with Omar, I think, is one of those silver linings that I've been grateful for. Um, so welcome, and uh, I think it would be helpful for you to start by telling us sort of your story, which I already know about your background growing up in Egypt, the medical training, and then how that kind of led you to where you are today.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Mina. It's always nice talking to you, but then being able to express and extend some of these conversations to the community and everyone watching is a privilege. So um, thanks for having me. My story is that I grew up in Cairo, Egypt. That's where I lived most of my life. I always wanted to go to the States for some reason. My dad was fascinated by the States. He applied for a green card very early on. We went and lived in Kuwait for a couple of years, and one day a lawyer told him that there is this scientific clause with the U.S. Embassy, especially because it was after the Gulf War, and people could get visas to the States easier. And he applied for a green card, and then I always thought that. So him and my mom moved, and in 1998 went through the process, started going through the process of immigration. But I was too young to like even understand what was going on. 1998, I was 10 years old. Like, I'm 32 or 3, 32, I think now. Almost 33 actually, next month. Um, I always wanted to move to the States, but I stayed in Egypt, and we'd only my sister and I like would move would go every like year or summer. I had an opportunity to move in high school, but I wasn't old enough, so I got the scholarship, never got it, and then I got accepted to Rutgers, so I thought I'd go to school there in university, but then I did a major decision that changed my life forever, for better or for worse, and decided to follow in the footsteps of my dad and go into med school. And that's not the most fun experience of anyone's life. um, but it changed me. It really sculpted my personality because I all of a sudden went outside this like small private high school um, where everyone was like had similar beliefs and similar like ways of speaking and similar backgrounds, similar socioeconomic standards to a public university in Cairo. It's not the biggest one, so I was immediately just exposed to so many different parts of Egypt, literal locations, and also people that thought differently, that spoke differently, that maybe the way they spoke English was a way that was, I would make fun of them only a few years before, but then I learned that the world is a much wider spot. And my high school class we're only 40 people, only 2 or 3 of us did not end up going to the American University in Cairo, where you go into like a bigger bubble where all the like rich kids go. And so in many ways, I'm grateful for that med school experience. It taught me how to like see Egypt with a new eye. Gave me like I became much more street smart during those years. I I did not fall in love with medicine though. I loved studying biology, and I was just like really exhausted. And then by the time I graduated and was in my internship year, so we do, you know, in Egypt we do 7 years and then 1 year of internship, and I was just completely depressed. Like I was just was like I've been. So all my friends at that point had graduated. Some of them already had kids. Some of them, at least, you know, and the ones that aren't starting a family at least have some money, have some independence. I'm still taking money from my dad. I'm studying pathology and biochemistry and later, you know, surgery. And by the time I was studying OBGYN and all that stuff, I was just like, I really don't care. And then you go into being an intern, and I was I'll say I was a really good student though. Like I was still top of my class. I always loved studying stuff. And so I got a post as a cardio surgeon in Egypt, and which is really hard to get actually. But I was like really depressed, and I realized, okay, maybe if I move to the States, maybe that's the time. You know, the medicine is great. You know, they're investing all this money in research. The facilities are amazing, and I got an internship position at Tufts in Boston, not too far away from where you live now. And man, I got more depressed than I ever. First of all, it was the first time I've ever seen snow. So it was 2010. And if you remember, 2010 had a really bad blizzard around this time. And so I ended up seeing snow for the first time and like just being miserable in the cold. I also thought snow was going to be like a really fun experience, but it wasn't that great. So I found it very overrated. And I decided then, so Obamacare had just happened and people were excited about it. And I just realized, okay, there's a shift, obviously, from doctors being the most important thing to this thing called technology that everyone thinks is going to fix things magically. And what I did then was I came back to Egypt, finished my internship, and then the revolution happened. So I had a lot of time to think for myself. And I also had this interesting experience, which I also thought was a privilege of like starting one of those field hospitals in Tahrir. And what struck me then was that, you know, when we're in there's like all this meaning and like compassion and wanting to serve in a way that wasn't there when we're in the hospital, because we feel like we're undermined as doctors and like just cogs in the wheel, which is what creates burnout. And I didn't realize that there was this thing called burnout, or you know, I just labeled myself as someone who's depressed. I labeled myself as bipolar depression. You know, like studying psychiatry during those years didn't help. I was just like giving myself a different diagnosis. Like, what is this? Like, what is this kind of tension that is within me? You know, I feel so unfulfilled, and so I decided to go to a place where I can get access to a lot of technology and recreate my own self, essentially. And I moved to San Francisco, and that's where I met Paul. And I lived in San Francisco for 6 years. I got an MBA and then got into data analytics, started working as a consultant. I traveled in almost all the places in the States, every single timing, you know. And I helped insurance companies and hospitals essentially just make money. And I was in a very stable place in my life until my job again, like I reached that same point where I'm just not satisfied. And I was like, oh, it's not the medicine, it's life. And and then also I met my then girlfriend and now wife in the middle of these years of San Francisco. We did like a long distance relationship. She was living in Amsterdam, I was living in San Francisco. So well, our trips were great, you know, we'd go to fun places, but then realized, okay, there was then this tension of where are we? Like, and so she moved to Egypt. And then in last year, I came back, joined her and got married like first few weeks of COVID, actually. So we haven't hit our 1 year anniversary yet, but it's been interesting coming back to Egypt with after all these years. It's not like the depression has gone away, but I have a lot of tools to deal with it, and I've been thinking a lot about behavior and habit change. And now I'm trying to help doctors that are in the same position or in different positions generally find take care of themselves essentially using technology and data, which is kind of collects a lot of different passions of mine. But that's what I'm excited to do now. And I think there's much more awareness about it than any other time before. And generally, I think people are looking for ways to understand how to take care of themselves, which is something I've been thinking about for a long time.
So where do you see this going in the future? This combination of your different passions and how you're expressing yourself professionally.
How I'm expressing myself professionally, I love that. Because it does feel more than work. It is an expression of like my own agony in many ways and my own passions. I see it being a company that delivers programs that help doctors understand and prevent burnout. Um, and I'm trying to figure out ways to deliver this. So we're obviously doing this through a digital interface and a mobile application that connects to a tracker like an Apple Watch or a Fitbit, and it integrates also a lot of the labs, so it quantifiably shows you how you're improving. Um, I see it kind of, my goal is to reach to as many doctors and help it scale so that it can be like more of a global platform that my nirvana would be being able to make it accessible to doctors that are in Egypt that I know can't afford these services, and the US alike. So I know that it's a global problem. I think every doctor, every human being deserves to have access to like these tools, right? And these tools are just, people don't tell you about this. People don't tell you how to eat when you're young. Why don't we learn that in school? Like it would help us so much. We don't learn about financial management, for instance. We don't learn about time management that much, other than the hard way. Um, but to bring it back to like where I see it, I see like I'd love to have a model similar to Tom's, shoes, where you buy a shoe and it's like a buy one give one model. So I imagine like a wealthy doctor in the US participating in the program to get the results. We deliver those results, but we also deliver a similar program to someone in Egypt or Kenya or Tanzania. And I've been exploring Africa a lot this year, actually. So that's a big part of my identity that I didn't even know was there. But it's been interesting going to Kenya and like looking at how accessible healthcare services are, and just thinking of the world in that like bigger scope is kind of where I wanted to take this. And we're trying to build technology to allow us to do that at a cost where we can actually grow as a company.
So you use that word identity.
Yeah.
Loaded word.
Very loaded word, yeah.
What did you mean?
Well, when I went to Kenya, I realized that first of all, Cairo as a city has a lot more in common with Mombasa as a city versus Dubai or Beirut I haven't been to Syria, but like all these Arab countries essentially that we associate with as Egyptians more than Africa. I don't think we have as much in common with them other than the language. But in Kenya, there's a similar population. They have very little access to things. They have absolutely zero respect to traffic laws. And it's just relatable, man. It was relatable. And I was like, oh, okay, this kind of feels like home. And it's not the same feeling I get when I go to Dubai. I've only been to Dubai once, actually. But I think there's something there in this identity, where you see something and you're like, oh, like part of me is in that, or this place has something that I've experienced before, or these people are experiencing something that my people or the people I grew up around are feeling. And there's some kind of mystical bond that I felt when I was there.
And as it relates to your work, you mentioned it kind of in passing, but your identity and who you are is connecting sort of at a subconscious level with what you're searching for professionally. So,
Yeah.
do you think that's true for everybody?
So I am someone who like relentlessly pursues passions and is continuously thinking of this identity thing. So I don't know if like how I see this relates, but I was just having an interesting conversation with a friend of mine, not recently actually, like a year ago. But we're just revisiting this. But what a year ago is what's relevant to your question, because he asked me how's work, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm making a lot of money. It's good. I feel like stable. There are some problems with traveling Monday to Thursday and stuff, but I just don't feel like there's any purpose in it, anymore. And I just don't feel like there's any meaning behind it. And his response was like, "You're making money. That's more than what most people can tell." So his attitude was like, be grateful for what you have, which is also valid. But mine was like, no, I'm not satisfied. So I don't think everyone looks for meaning in their work, but I think if everyone did, our world would be very different, and it would be a much more satisfying place to live in. And that's what I'm figuring out when I like look further into the research around burnout. It really is about that. Like it's a loss of meaning, and I think a lot of people see work as a necessity, or I'm privileged to have been even offered that job. Most people don't know what they're worth, and that's the problem.
That's a powerful statement that you just made. Can you say that again?
Most people do not know what they're worth.
So I I'm gonna invite you to tell me more, and it's up to you whether you want to talk about it in the abstract or in the personal, as you have sort of come into a place where you're able to discover your worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can relate to it from my own perspective. Um, there are a couple of ways I can go about this. So one is like you usually see your worth as your salary, right? And it's like whatever the employer has decided to pay you is what you are worth. And there's always like this piece of advice of like keep interviewing in other places to know your worth, because it's very true. Like we tag what we are worth, which with how much we're getting paid, because we think that's how much we are able to produce in the world. But it's not. It's not even um, a tiny portion of it, I think, because there is the impact that you have on your family, on your community, on البواب اللي تحت البيت, like there's just like so much. Every single interaction you do and every single decision you make creates some kind of impact in the world. And I think we need to look beyond just what is it that I do and how much am I worth, and be like, well, what am I, what am I worth when I think of it from the perspective of all those that I interact with day to day? What kind of impact am I creating? And it's not like this can be financially rewarded, but I just think, especially like one generation older than us, is like more like, they would have one career for their whole life that would determine what they're worth. Now we live in a world where you can do so many different things, and especially even when it comes to financial rewards, you can figure out new ways to do things. So, and that's the journey I'm on now. Like I was capped at a certain worth that I was constantly negotiating with my employer. And once I started like coming back into, and I was also in a state where I always wanted to make more. I always wanted to make more because I felt like I just need to churn, and I don't want to lose my savings, and I don't want to, go into like poverty. And I've been a year now without like this stable paycheck, um, and it's forced me to realize that the ways that I can make money or create things in the world could be on my own terms, could be much more aligned with who I am, as like a doctor that got burnt out, or as someone who is Egyptian trying to give back to an Egyptian community. Um, it's not like I was able to get back to like that level that I was a year ago, but my sense of self-worth is actually much higher right now because I'm choosing what I do. Like I wake up in the morning, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be working with these doctors today, and I'm gonna be like building these dashboards today, and I know what kind of impact these things are doing. It's not just going into some spreadsheet, and it's not as abstract as it was, when consulting. Right now, I'm like, um, I know what the final output of my work is. And that is because that final output is something I deeply care about. And so I'm tracking it, and I'm seeing it unfurl. And so there's this new sense that I'm getting with work now. It's like, I finally feel like I was built to do this. My whole story, it's in my genes, I need to be pursuing this. And in Egypt, a lot of people say, like, don't tell people your idea because someone's going to steal it. And people are just going to go and do it. Oh, there's a great idea. Just keep it. I have no problem talking about the idea because it's not new. Like bringing like well-being is not new. I'm just implementing it in a way that is very particular to me and my team and our own stories. So I think, you know, it's a long question. I probably went on many tangents, but and I can go on a couple of more, but um, I think it's this idea of like what you're producing is more important and worth thinking about than just what is it that comes in the paycheck every month.
So I'll tell you that I had this conversation just last night with someone that was asking about this issue, and someone else answered it with a perspective that I think is totally fair and totally valid, which is to say, I'm going to do this for now, right? Save up enough money so that I can do what I want later. And I didn't want to come across as sort of disagreeing or downplaying that, but I do think that I personally couldn't do that. Like I can only chase a carrot for so long, and I can only put my self-worth in something that is meaningful to me, which is not money. So it comes from a position of privilege, and I think it's something that you and I don't take for granted. The fact that like you could take money from your dad, and I could take money from my parents, and uh, we have, I don't know, like maybe it's unreasonable confidence, right? Maybe we shouldn't have had that confidence, and whether you have that confidence in yourself or you have confidence in God, and maybe your abilities aren't what you thought they were, and maybe God's going, no, no, don't do that. um Either way, right, whether it's real or apparent, we have the boldness to kind of say, well, I'm going to take this risk, and I'm going to do this thing that might not be the best financial move,
It
but
certainly isn't.
right.
But it's like I don't I think your friend does have a very valid point because it's like I couldn't make this move like 5 years ago. You know, I had to work 5 years to be able to finance this risk in a way. So financially, it definitely isn't always the best move. And at the end, you gotta reach a point and you're like, okay, I'm going to hedge my bets on this one thing and focus, and that's how I'm gonna make money. Or keep diversifying and exploring. And those are two different kind of moods I go in between, or you know, like even a mode of operating. Like I'm exploring, no, I'm exploiting. And I think it's the other aspect that I was thinking more of is like the mental quality of life, the spiritual quality of life, where you feel like your work is what you're meant to be doing. There isn't that conflict, there isn't that inner tension of like, why am I here? Why am I doing this every day? Because you know, yeah, you work for like 9 8 9 hours a day, so 40 hours a week, and it's a lot of time. So if you're not satisfied, you don't need to leave your job now, but you better create a plan around it. Even if it's just about, okay, you know what, my reality is that I got in this job, this is the only job I can get. But then how do you create boundaries in that job to be more spiritual, to be here, to give yourself time to do whatever it is that you are looking for? Have a Galabaya party with your friends, you know?
Yeah, and I think this is a good time to point out that we are both celebrating our Egyptian heritage with our galabeas. I'm drinking Shay, uh, Shay Bel Nana, actually. Like if we're going to be complete. Um, and
Nice.
I don't know where we got this glass, but I feel like if I drank my tea in anything but this glass, I'm committing some kind of like cultural fraud.
Yeah, your hand has to burn in order for you to be able to enjoy
No,
it.
actually, so even if it was completely like full and like piping hot the way that I like it, like
Uh-huh.
holding it like this, you know, no problems. Um, you know, Egyptian skills, I guess. Um, so that's that. I mean, that's super interesting that you know, we can hold these two ideas in our mind at the same time. Like I need to have some kind of financial security, but at the same time, you know, have a profession that gives me meaning. And ideally, you have both.
Mhm.
Um, ideally, you have both. And the timing of, you know, when you get one or the other is a complicated thing. And bringing it back to you, it seems like, you know, you've moved on from the financial stability question and you've moved into this sort of looking for meaning. Where's that meaning going to come from?
That meaning is going to come from my end users telling me that this is working, that their lives are improving. And that's when I know my business is a healthy one. There is something that I'm putting out there. Um, and with the time and money thing, again, I think I bought myself some time, but the financial pressures are um, going up. I mean, it was a good year to like take that risk because, you know, I'm not spending that much, staying at home, not traveling as much as I used to. But I only have so much time before I need to start thinking about money very seriously. So I think it's just you keep you can buy freedom for like extended periods of times. You know, I don't know what you think about this, but I like the idea of like multiple early retirements rather than one big retirement when you're old. You know, like like I would like to get a retirement. Okay, I'm almost 33. I would like to retire when I'm like 40 for a bit. You know, that's what like over 15 years in the workforce. That's a lot, and that takes a toll on you. So I hope I can, you know, save enough so that at 40 I can enjoy myself for a few months and do one of those again. I like, okay, what's next? Okay, I'm done with this. What's the next meaning? But again, maybe it's a luxury, it's a privilege, but I'm trying to play around with that idea.
And I think, it's just a matter of what you expect from yourself. I think if someone expects from themselves that they work 50 weeks a year, that's what they're going to do. If someone expects from themselves that they're going to take 1 week off a month, that's what they're going to do. If someone expects, I can't take more than a weekend off at a time, that's what they're going to do. If someone says, no, I want to take 2 weeks and eventually 3 weeks off at a time, that's what they're going to do. And there's no hard and fast rules in life. Even if you work for a corporation that
Yeah.
has these mandated rules, you can say, well, I don't want to work for a corporation that has these rules, and you can go work somewhere else. So, I think what you're saying is that instead of looking at what's handed to us as a color by number set of expectations, and this is how you're going to treat your work, looking at it and saying, no, but what value am I getting out of this? If it's rewarding me financially and that gives me the ability to do things that I want to do, great. If it's rewarding me intrinsically and it's giving me meaning as someone who is not financially compensated but is compensated in a different way, then that's beneficial as well. Either
Mhm.
way, we have to step back and interrogate our experience and really ask, are we getting something out of this, or am I just going through it mindlessly saying, well, that I thought that's just what I was supposed to do?
Yeah. That's such a crucial point too, like being able to see the value in things that are regarded widely as negative, such as, since we're speaking of jobs, like a job rejection, or generally, I've had so many rejections this year. And it's a process with each one of like, ugh, I didn't get it, or I was, and it's not like, it's not even jobs. Like I was just trying to get like clients and stuff this year. And there was so many times where I felt like, why is this happening? Or, why does that person not think I'm good enough? And a few weeks later, I would realize, oh, that's not what I was interested in. Like, so each rejection almost put me on a different path. And when I start seeing them as, what the question that you asked, what value is there for me in this? New answers start coming up, and I start seeing, this rejection as a redirection. It's like, okay, this is not where you need to be. You need to be here. And like I was interviewing for this job with Amazon earlier, and I went through like 15 interviews, and I thought I had it, but deep inside me, I really didn't want it because I would have had to leave my wife in Egypt. It was right after we got married. It was going to be like a lot of traveling, but it was Amazon, right? So at one point, I was like, okay, and even the conversation with people, I wasn't like, yeah, I want to work with you. I was like, okay, it sounds like a good thing. Who's no to Amazon, right? And I probably wouldn't have been able. In the end, they gave it to someone else. It was between me and another guy, and he got it, and I got really pissed. I remember because I was like, I'm invested in this by now. I want to win. I just want to win, and then say no. But I think I don't think it would. I would have been able to say no though, because I probably would have. And I was going in half-hearted. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll do a couple of years and then do that startup that I really want to do. And so yeah, rejection is just sometimes showing you where you want to go, and you can call that a divine intervention. You can call that the way life is, whatever it is your belief system is. You can kind of find the value in things that we still think is negative.
So we agree financial stability is a good thing to have. We agree that looking for meaning in all aspects of life, including your work, is something that we should strive for. And when I asked you how will you know if this new job, this new thing has given you meaning, you answered with the clients, the people that you're serving, whether it's making an impact on their lives. And I want to probe that a little bit further. And this is where I must ask you something.
Okay.
Is the meaning that you get for this and for other things going to be something that is a product of what is happening outside, like how people are responding? Or is it going to be a product of what's happening inside, how you're responding to how people respond?
Hmm. My answer might not be satisfying for you, but I'm seeing it as a flux because if I only there, I absolutely have my own metrics, right? Like I want to be, um, I want to have like some financial stability. I want to be able to provide certain things for my family, and I want to be able to, you know, raise money for a company. But and these are all things, okay, like they might be coming from an external factor, but when I get these things, I'm going to be feeling like I'm on the right path. So it's gonna like make me feel like I'm doing the right thing because it's working. I think for me, one thing that's really telling is that now I'm doing like these coaching sessions, and this is the first time I interact with human beings as part of my job. Other than like business owners and meetings and stuff. It's more like my job is to actually facilitate the conversation with someone, and it's been the feeling that I get from work is very different than the past 5 years when I was just crunching numbers and working on data and trying to sell like this presentation, try to sell this thing. It's more like I'm trying to genuinely help someone and this is like the intention that I'm going into the next hour with. So it's there's the feeling of the end of the day of like sometimes it's like tough too because I'm carrying other people's traumas and stuff, but it certainly charges me in a way. Um, I'm taking now as my indicator that this is something that I should be doing because um, if I feel internally depleted, then that's something. But if I'm being charged up and my participants aren't happy and they don't feel like this is making a difference, then I'm being delusional as well. You know. Then
What
I'm
if they don't appreciate it? What if they, in your estimation, like you're looking at, like, listen, like this person, lost 30 pounds, their, metrics are better, they, you know, have less stress based on the metrics that you measure, and then they're like, nah, I don't like this program, I don't like you, and
yeah,
I could have done it myself better.
yeah. I'm trying really hard to identify the profile of such person because those are the ones that I don't want in the program. Quite frankly, because that's what is called. That's like a bad apple. You have someone that is active and working with you, but doesn't appreciate what you do. So like I either the thing that I'm doing is not working, and therefore I need to do something else, either change the program or change what I, or the person is just ungrateful, and I find it really hard to see the impact of the program being that big, and the person is just like no, like because if they can do it themselves, then they can leave and then come back when they're ready. But if all my
But every
participants don't feel that way, then I have the either the wrong crowd or the wrong product.
but by every objective measure, the program has helped this person, right? They're uh, 40 years old, and up until they started the program, they were overweight, they were overstressed, they had significant risk factors, and
Mhm.
like in 6 months, all of that turned around. And based on all the evidence that you've collected, you've changed their habits and you've changed their perspective. And even if they leave the program, they will continue to benefit from the program in that you have given them the skills not just to be fine for a few months so you could, renew your grant, but to actually have a meaningful impact on their lives. So they leave and they say, well, what a waste of time that was. But like objectively, like not even you because you're biased and it's your baby, but like anybody looking at it, like, dude, are you crazy? like you just changed your life, and you like if you were gonna do it by yourself, you would have done it by then, right? Going back to the same thing as like the ideas are easy. It's
Yeah.
execution and making something actually happen in reality that matters.
Yeah. One of the interesting things that I'm finding is that the most aged people are also the healthiest. So it's like, honestly, like what I'm doing is not going to work if the person doesn't have the intention, anyways. So, in them saying that they did it themselves is very true in many ways. But it requires some being a little savvy in like choosing who you continue to work with, because if that's what the conversation is about between us every day, then that person is depleting me further. So taking like 3 months and then going at it, you got to deal with like the naysayers in a way, but that's someone that's already been in the program, so it's not false that they did it themselves. Actually, it's not 100% false. The program helped them, but
Do you need the validation from this person?
no, I need the validation. And it's interesting when thinking of the validation from the numbers versus what people tell me, because actually it's the opposite problem. I think people are too nice with me right now, and because they value it and they see this like a personal, intimate thing. But it's like, um, I also enjoy it when people are kind of real about the feedback. Um, but which validation would I need? Um, no, I still think, especially in this like early stage when it's a pilot, I still think the participants are one of the top things. Like giving them like, if they want to like continue opting in at the end, and want to do this, to do more of this program, that's still going to be like a big sign of success to me at this point. And I do hope that despite the cynicism that I'm probably going to face, I keep it that way. Because I don't want to be, it can't just be another like numbers driven organization. Yeah, numbers are really important, but it has to be about people actually wanting this and continuing to ask for it. So I'd still want the validation, yeah, as a business at least.
I think it would be interesting to track this metric. And you and I are both like data oriented people. And we ask questions about how data can help us to quantify someone's experience, right? Which is tough to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? How, you know, you get like a number on a box in a spreadsheet, and that tells you that this person was better off. Like that's hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think turning that inward and um, looking at ourselves, um, it's something that we can ask over a course of time and say, what is my metric for success? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that over time, and again, like I'm asking the question. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but it's possible that over time the metric for success shifts from an outward Like, oh, this person's going to tell me that I'm fine, versus eventually saying, I don't need this person's validation. Like my um, my sense of self-worth comes from me knowing that I'm doing a good job. And then eventually it's not even about doing a good job, right? It's not about the metric of this person's happy or the data says that I'm happy, but that it's the process. Like I'm showing up, I'm caring about people, they don't appreciate it, it's not working, nothing good is happening, but it's still worth showing up.
Yeah, but this is the point where I mustache use something. What's the difference between that and narcissism?
And that's a great question. And I think it's the same spectrum and the same tension between
Uh,
financial and meaning, right? If
hmm.
we are so irresponsible with our finances that we're just chasing dreams that really have no basis, that's a problem. But if we have like so much insecurity about money that we never step back and ask, like, do I really need this much money, or do I need to find something a little bit better to do with my time, right? That's attention. And it's the same here, where there's going to be a spectrum of validation. Like, am I looking for external validation, or am I a narcissist, like you're saying? And finding that balance where it's like, no, I'm getting feedback. And sometimes the feedback is, listen, you just got to keep doing what you're doing. And whether that sense of, but, and we mentioned the sense of confidence, it might be a false sense of confidence. Like maybe we shouldn't have it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we should have not done things. We should have given up on things, but we have a sense of conviction. And again, who knows where that comes from? Does it come from an internal drive? Does it come from God? Does it come from support of other people? We don't know, but there has to be some balance in feeling like your life and your work has some meaning and purpose that transcends the external validations that come, whether monetary or interpersonal. Maybe, I don't know.
It's a good one to think about.
So you've been a joy and a pleasure and an education as always. Thank you for joining us. Do you have any parting words of wisdom for anybody that's still listening?
Yeah, you probably shouldn't quit your job. um, but no, it's really impressive that anyone has been listening to us chat so long. So thank you for making it to the end of the show. And if speaking of feedback, like if anyone on the other side wants to kind of break this fourth wall and connect with me, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, and I'll include your contact information in the post so people can reach out.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming, Omar.
Thanks, Mina.
Bye, guys.
It's been fun.